we switched off of the bird cam. We got the Zyrocat cam going on right now. But we've been seeing, how close a lot of these teams have been, and we, in particular, have Obey Alliance and Gargoyle just fighting for the better seeding right now, Dratnos, in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, these two teams are two of those teams in that top 6, right? And they're fighting not just to stay within the top 6, but to move up within it, right? To move up into that level of challenging Perplexed and Echo for the supremacy of the Cups. And we haven't seen a team that's been able to consistently breach up into that level yet with Echo and Perplexed, but we've seen hints of it. We've seen hints of it from several different teams, including, I think, especially Gargoyle here. But Obey Alliance, I mean, they've looked this is such a good run looking from them as well. 3 seconds between these teams. I mean, it's impossible to say that this was a bad run for either team. It was so clean. 0 deaths. Nothing to be ashamed of for either one. This is going to be a brutally close series.
That's right. And that's really what we've been looking for today, as, a lot of the other series have been a lot more lopsided. So Obey Alliance taking that first game, which is also going to start looking us towards Spires of Ascension here. But before we go into that, Zyro, let's start talking about some of those routing as well. We didn't see the Paladins coming out beforehand, as we thought that we would see as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the major thing was, how does Gargoyle Stream use their Gargoyles early on in the dungeon, right? We've been talking about it all day, but whenever we see teams in Halls of Atonement this week with the Raging affix, making sure you MC it with the Raging just helps it do that much more damage for your group, and they did that perfectly. That's what gave them the advantage early on in the dungeon, but again, Obey Alliance pulling out that extra single target damage at the very end of the dungeon to win it by, I don't even think we have an official time yet, but it seemed like it had to be literally underneath a second with how close it was. Actually, I think we do have the official times in right now. It was 13:58 for Obey Alliance and 14:01 for Does Gargoyle Stream. So it wasn't as close as we thought it was, but still incredibly close between the two.
Yeah, and one death make all the difference. And we were talking as well, Tettles, about the Enraged Stoneborn, of knocking it down to the level of Raging and then getting the mind control off, doing some obscene damage.
Yeah, and I mean, it helped. I mean, Obey Alliance had theirs work, right, on Cigar. On the side of Gargoyle, they ended up randomly killing theirs, and due to it evading and potentially other issues, that could even be seen as the major issue, and the major reason that they ended up losing is just because not being able to get that Gargoyle perfect, unfortunately for them.
Most definitely, and it's going to start setting our eyes here, Dranos, onto Spires of Ascension. We've got Fortified, Explosive, and Raging coming into this one. What are we going to make of that in terms of routing, in terms of some of the difficulty that we're going to be looking for? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, this combination as well, Raging Fortified, this is one that you don't see on the live servers, and there's a good reason for that. This is extremely dangerous for tanks. In Spires in particular, there are some really nasty enemies that it's going to be really a test, not just of the tank, but of the entire group, because there's a lot of group-wide damage from the trash as well. So look out as the packs start getting low. If you try and kite them as well, you might start running into explosive problems, because now you've got explosives spawning all over the place. So this is a 3 affix combo that is deceptively difficult. All 3 affixes on their own, pretty manageable, but they all kind of team up with each other to make the dungeon really tough.
Most definitely. Let's see how these teams perform as Gargoyle and Obey Alliance are ready to go, as we are 1 in the series, about to start up game number 2 in Spires of Ascension.
Yeah, okay, so definitely something to watch out here is I feel like Obey Alliance's general routing through Spires of Ascension has normally been slightly superior to Gargoyle's, but I feel like Gargoyle's consistency in this dungeon has definitely been a little bit better than Obey Alliance. And with affixes that punish you so heavily, like you were talking about, Dratnos, that may actually be in the favor of Gargoyle, just being more consistent as opposed to having something that's a little bit even faster.
Both teams getting ready to get underway here. We see a little bit of a swap from the comps used in the halls now. The Hunters in for both teams. This is a very popular Hunter dungeon. A lot of good stuff brought by this back here. You can see the turtle deployed right away by both of them, as they're going to be running up to the very top here. Both teams getting this massive pull of all the trash that they can as the first order of business.
All right, so now you do have that big pack, making sure that they get kicks on some of the most important castles. Rebellious Fist from the Forsworn Goliath. Absolutely important, especially during Raging. If that goes off, really dangerous. They also do have the Burden of Knowledge that you saw go on Maystein. he almost immediately died to the first tick of the Burden of Knowledge going on to him right at the very end of Raging. I mean, that's one of the most dangerous parts of Raging in this dungeon is if the trash pack just dies a few seconds late, you may end up getting a couple more casts off that you weren't really expecting. Obey Alliance was able to deal with their first trash pull just a little bit quicker though, Dratnos, or like 5 to 10 seconds faster, and by result of that, it looked a lot more clean.
Yeah, this is Obey Alliance opening up a little bit of a lead here. Last map we saw Obey Alliance playing from behind the whole time and then surging ahead just at the very last 5 seconds. They were behind right until the end of that Halls of Atonement where they just snuck into the lead. This time, though, that first pull has worked out dramatically better for them, and they've already opened up a little bit of an advantage as they get into this second pull. You can see those mages really just popping off here for both teams, making tremendous work with all of the combustion, the Night Fae ability, all teaming up for really, really good effect on really single target and AoE. And the trash pull dying now. Here's the Pride spawn for Obey Alliance. Still at 16% on count for Gargoyle, but they've got almost all the mobs basically dead as well. So really, still only about 10 seconds here between these teams. Still a really close game. No deaths so far in the series, except for that one after the time stopped. So I'm calling it still 0 deaths in the series so far. I'm curious to see if we'll see any in this dungeon. This one is one that we often see some deaths in. There's a lot that can go wrong here.
Yeah, the death at the end of the Halls of Atonement is due to the fact that the debuff doesn't go away off of you even whenever Chamberlain dies. Obey Alliance ends up pulling the first boss at exactly the same time as does Gargoyle Stream. Does Gargoyle Stream has a little bit higher health than the Manifestation of Pride. Mo drops to 2% health. Maystein dropping super low. This is so scary for Gargoyle. Okay, the Pride ends up dying. Mode's mana is going to recover. They're going to be okay.
They're pretty close to each other.
Deep breath. Everything's going to be fine. That was an incredibly scary point for Gargoyle. But due to the fact that they did pull the Pride in to the first boss, the identical timing, now they're the exact same point in terms of boss HP. And they're actually
Even a little bit ahead.
Yeah, they're
Gargoyle.
starting to take a lead.
Gargoyle got their Pride a little bit earlier, so I guess it'll last a little bit longer for Obey Alliance from here. But still, I would say Gargoyle have definitely done a great job here with that aggressive pull into the boss. That's exactly what you need to do if you want to start stealing some seconds back and getting ahead against a team that is as evenly matched as Gargoyle and Obey Alliance are. They finished off their first boss here with a 3-minute and 16-second split and heading over now to the right-hand side of the dungeon.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, whichever side the teams head to first, they'll end up like U-turning. But I think with the right-hand side here, it's likely they'll just keep going. Whereas, Obey Alliance are also doing the same thing. So both teams heading right instead of getting anything from the left-hand side first. And they are just going to be grouping everything up and AoEing it down.
So what this means is that they're going to get their 40% Pride at a different time. Basically, and it's like something we see from Perplex a lot, where they go left and grab the skirmishers first. If you go left and grab the skirmishers first, I think you end up getting your 40% Pride off of these mobs here, the Praetor and all of these dogs.
On the left.
Whereas
on the right.
if you don't, then you're able to get it off of like the Goliaths and the double Goliath pull that's immediately after this. So you do see,
pretty close.
Interestingly enough, Obey Alliance still has their Bloodlust available, so they didn't elect to use it on the first boss, whereas Gargoyle used theirs on their first boss to be able to kill off that Pride. So Obey Alliance is going to have the Bloodlust for this pull, which is definitely seen as one of the most dangerous pulls in the instance. But Gargoyle is basically saying that they're able to do it without the Bloodlust, if you're able to actually pull it off, I think that where Gargoyle's Bloodlusting is probably superior just in terms of like time gain.
I mean, that's how they made up that time here. And Bloodlust, it can be useful to facilitate AoE pulls to make them safe when they otherwise wouldn't be. You can see Obey Alliance using their Bloodlust in this way. But it usually cuts less time off of an AoE pull than it does off of a single target moment. Because haste tends to scale very well for specs and single target. And wow, I mean, Gargoyle have done it. They've managed to make this pull happen without the lust.
So the trash mobs are a little bit different. Gargoyle doesn't pull the patrolling Praetor pack, so they stealth around it, whereas Obey Alliance actually ends up grabbing it into this pull.
So Obey Alliance are going to end up getting more count from this exchange. Whereas Gargoyle, either they have to pull it in now, or they're just going to grab their count later. So 4% count in favor of Obey Alliance, but 30% of a Pride and an earlier Bloodlust coming back up in favor of Gargoyle. I mean, this is. I think I like the side of Obey Alliance just when I put it like that, but it's really close. I mean,
it's due to where you have to get the 4%. Like that's the issue.
Right.
That's
the question.
Okay. You could have gotten it from a Praetor here, or you could get it from like some random squad.
It's like a Hellion later or something,
or a
right?
Hellion, yeah.
Hey, Gavin.
There's a bunch of
Come here.
bad mobs in the back half of this instance that you really don't want to be getting 4% enemy forces from. You would have, I think, preferred to get it from here. We're gonna see where the discrepancy ends up landing. It's gonna be like one. It's gonna be a 2 mobs differential.
Oh, sorry.
Obey Alliance is sitting here waiting a few seconds, waiting for that skirmisher to get CC'd. Gargoyle, I think, CC'd the whole
They CC'd all 4.
Yeah, all 4 before they made their way up
Just
here.
haze
So Obey Alliance definitely going bigger on this trash pack.
Yeah, okay, so they're going to be getting even more count out of this pull as well. So certainly if they can make this work, I think they're going to be in a good position to cut an entire pull out of the rest of the dungeon for them.
Does this mean that Gargoyle is going to have to pull that one squad leader pack that's in front of Vintunax? Like, I just want... Okay,
it looks
Gargoyle
like they're maybe
going back
back
in
pulling
games.
now. Yeah, so they'll be grabbing this trash. They just wanted to do it after the first pull rather than before. Or it's possible...
and a champion.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange to see this. Maybe they just wanted to make better use of their pride buff, and so they wanted
it
to just
seems
adjust
like
the
they're-
order that they did these pulls. That
winning
does
this.
make some sense. Or it's possible that if all 4 were CC'd, maybe they end up scuffing the way
See
that they
ya.
were going to skip them in some way.
Obey Alliance in this pot's the pride later. They get their
Yep,
60% pride here, whereas Gargoyle is at 59%.
Oh, wait, can you double?
So Gargoyle
Gargoyle
is going to be able to get their
something?
pride
Yeah.
into this
Zoom in.
second boss right here if they can find a
got
trash
my son
mob to
bringing
pull
me
that is
food.
acceptable for them. We've seen teams sometimes opt to skip
He
this
said I heard
this
it.
big 5-pack that is before the boss for good reason. It's a
guy's
scary
flying.
pull, but it's also good count. So Obey Alliance, it looks like, are going to
Nice.
be crowd controlling some of them and killing others. What is Gargoyle going to do here? There's some CC coming out.
They're
They
just
grab the
they're-
squad
they're
leader,
ahead.
and yeah, so it's going to be the squad leader by itself,
ahead.
which will trigger Prideful. Obey Alliance are fighting the squad leader plus a champion and a Praetor, so a little bit of a bigger pull there. You don't get that much efficient cleave is the problem because the squad
Yeah.
leader makes the mobs take less AoE. So you can see they haven't done very much damage to the other mobs that they are in combat with.
Kill this pride though.
So yeah, well, let's see what Gargoyle does. They have a Pride spawning. Maybe they can slowly pull in some of the ads with it.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Looks like
okay, so the
CCs
problem
are coming out.
Okay, so they're basically one full pride behind Obey Alliance in terms of time now, and the reason for that is because they can't really skip this pride because they're locked in combat with all those mobs that are sitting there CC'd. So they would have had to group meld and then immediately invis pot, but that's like not really a thing you can do. Obey Alliance, after they end up killing off the champion, the Praetor, and the squad leader, they end up pulling the final 2 mobs of that trash pack into Vintunax, which pretty efficient cleave, I would say. I think if it's like I was talking about at the beginning, I think Obey Alliance's strategy is definitely faster in this dungeon, but it is a lot more difficult to manage at times.
Okay, so now Gargoyle is going to get all of this trash with the boss, with the Pride buff. They are indeed a little bit behind where Obey Alliance is, but they have this Pride buff that Obey Alliance never got, right? Obey Alliance
you
skipped
Alliance
this
was
Pride
hanging out.
entirely. So
Moving
Gargoyle
ahead.
should be able to close a little bit of the gap here as IQ nearly lobbed off the edge of the platform, barely going to be able to glide back in
Did
there.
he fall off there?
I mean, some kind of knockback caused a little bit of a scary moment, but it looks like they're going to be just fine. Placing those Dark Stride Void Zones nice and far away from where they're going to fight the rest of the boss. And they've actually done a pretty good job here of catching up. You can see they are still 2 percentage points behind where Obey Alliance are in terms of mob count, but that's better than
Yeah,
before.
Obey
They were
moving
behind
faster.
earlier. They may have very similar pulls in their future. They are going to be getting off this platform a little bit later than Obey Alliance, though, because Obey Alliance have that boss at 10%. I mean, wow, but Gargoyle have done a really good job of closing this gap. And just like in the
Wow.
Atonement, every time a team is behind, they close that gap
Well-
back up, and we are in a really, really close game.
Wow.
Gargoyle is going to miss this recharge that Obey Alliance ended up. So Obey Alliance's damage literally almost came to a screeching halt once that second recharge ended up going off. Whereas Gargoyle, facilitated by the Pride buff, didn't get
They're
that
tied.
recharge, so it allowed them to beat it. I mean, it allows them to kill the boss at virtually the same time. So it's very clear. Obey Alliance is slightly ahead here. They're 2% enemy forces ahead. They ended up killing the boss at virtually identical times. Where the 2% enemy forces is going to come from is TBD. There may be like some Justicar or some champion, maybe a Hellion involved, but right now it's going to come down to cleanliness and execution at the back half of this instance. This is going to be a really scary point in the dungeon as well, especially since it's also raging for the triple angel pull. That's something that we didn't really discuss, but that's
Raging
no joke.
Fortified, nonetheless. That's
Yeah.
that is unbelievably treacherous.
Look at that.
Let's see what
They're just
happens here
skipping
with
over these
the
mobs.
teams. Those they're both going to be hopping on their mounts and heading around the right-hand side here, avoiding pulling basically
Yeah.
anything in this area. They're making their way now to the top of the stairs, and IQ is getting ready for a pull here. Gargoyle does need to pull a little bit more than Obey Alliance. Let's see if this is where the pulls diverge.
That is a lot of
Looks
pull.
like basically the same plan from both teams so far.
Ooh.
Yeah, basically
Gargoyle
the same
has
mobs
them all
are included
together
here, I think, in both sides.
first.
There's a spear deployed by Gargoyle and one by Obey Alliance as well. So each team has used one of their 2 Kyrian spears right now. They have one remaining each that they'll presumably be saving for maybe the Triple Angels? I'm not sure. As they are now the Pride spawning for Gargoyle. Yeah, Gargoyle have gotten up to 83% count. They've spawned that Pride. They've actually done this pull a little bit faster than Obey Alliance. Obey Alliance killed the boss sooner, but they've gotten here a little bit later at this point, and they are now going to be pulling the Usurpers behind this pillar, line of sighting while fighting the Pride. This is a really clever way to accomplish this Usurper pull at the same time as the Pride, because the Usurpers don't really do much as long as you can group them up, and you group them up by line of sighting.
Oh,
you can
Mo.
Mo gets attacked by his friend there. Mick going down as well. There's our first death of the series. That is a brutal team kill as a result of the Prideful
One went
Affix.
down.
That's what that boast does. They're going to
What
have to
was
commit
that?
a battle
was
res,
it
but they of
DPS?
course need to use the NG res to do it. It is going to be
how they
deployed there,
tank.
but now you can see the entire team is so low on health. The next pulse from the Manifestation of Pride will
Oh,
cause
Maystein.
Maystein to go down.
Don't make it,
They
don't
have
make
one
it.
more battle res here, but it's tough to find the time to deploy it here because you kind of just need to be casting your buttons.
They
And you don't really have
still-
time to channel an
wow.
engineering res, so both teams, they're just going to be able to kill off the Pride barely
with
on the side of
3
Gargoyle.
players.
Obey Alliance have really closed back up the time here. Both teams now at exactly the same percentage.
Yeah.
Obey Alliance didn't kill those Usurpers, whereas Gargoyle did, but Gargoyle now has a 10-second death penalty and one less battle res as they get started on the boss, a little bit behind where Obey Alliance is.
Yeah, I think that this is big. This is great news for Obey Alliance fans. But at the same time, this dungeon's not over. Like the last angel pull, there was so much room for mistakes. You could heal the angels to full, raging deaths. Basically, everything that can go wrong may go wrong on this triple angel pull. And honestly, Ophirion is virtually at the same HP. The only difference I do really see here is the 10 seconds death differential.
That's what
Yeah,
I
it's
need
gonna
to play.
really
I
come
need to be
down
a
to the
tank,
angel
too.
pull. I mean, I think the angel pull and whether either team has a faster way of dealing with the last boss, if there's differences in how they handle that, whether or not they are able to successfully skip those prides, and how well they execute the rest of this boss fight. I mean, I guess that's basically everything that's left in the dungeon. So it's really going to come down to everything that's left in the dungeon. Which team can do it faster is going to win. That's my expert analysis on the situation as we have Orphirion recharging here for Obey Alliance, entering that phase right about now for Gargoyle as well. They've got to soak these orbs, and you can see it's going to be Demon Hunter duty on both sides. They're not going to have anybody use an immunity to do this. They're just going to have the Demon Hunter handle it. Demon Hunters are really effective at doing this because they're just so tanky against magic damage. Even with those 10 stacks,
Hey.
not a big deal.
Expert Dratnos, Gargoyle killing Ophirion faster during the recharge phase is going to make him virtually die at the exact same time as Obey Alliance, because Obey Alliance just had
Nice.
slightly lower damage during that increased damage taken phase. All right, so now Obey Alliance is grabbing the usurpers. Do they only need one side of them?
Yeah, both teams are at the same count, right? So they both should only need one side. Both teams have a side still available. Of course, Gargoyle's already
Gargoyle,
killed one side
they're
as
pulling
well.
away.
And they're going to be hopping now
Yeah.
on to their Kyrian friends, flying upstairs. So they've
pull away.
gotten onto these Kyrian about 10 seconds ahead.
Yep.
So close to 10 seconds. But those 10 seconds of death differential
That's
entirely
a
cancel
lot.
that out. These two teams
In
are at
MMO, that's a lot of
exactly the
time.
same point in the dungeon for the second dungeon in a row. This is going to come right down to the final seconds. This is so exciting to watch.
Oh, it's very unfortunate for Gargoyle to have the 10 seconds death differential, but I think there's a lot of time to actually be able to be made up on Devos, and that's due to the fact that like the achievement spears that you're able to throw, and just like the javelin that gives that hits the boss for 10% of his HP. There's a lot that can go right and a lot that can go wrong on that fight too, assuming that both groups are able to down all three of these angels at once. Basically, all three of the angels are empowered here and are going to be doing stupid amounts of damage. Neither group has used. Okay, so they're waiting to
They're gonna
use their
save the
Kyrian
spear.
javelin. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
waiting for the right time, and they're also okay. So Obey Alliance pops their bloodlust a little bit early. And so they're committing to the burn on the Angels a little bit earlier than Gargoyle.
Yeah, so they want to just get access to their cooldowns, get there, and there it comes out for Gargoyle as well. The exact same plan is going to come out. There's the Kyrian Spear. It's not only a stun, which makes it a lot easier to survive this pull, it's also a huge damage taken increase that they're going to try and multiply with all of their offensive cooldowns, but they need to... Oh, no! Gargoyle! No, 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 no! Mode and Mick going down. They only have one battle res. They're going to get Mode up, but there's basically... If somebody is dead, a TPS player is dead at this point, things get so bad so quick. They had people releasing now. Maystein is down as well. It's going to be tough. They need to be able to find a way to claw this one back, but on the side of Obey Alliance, things have looked flawless. All 3 Angels went down successfully. None of them healed back up. They're going to spawn that Manifestation of Pride, run away, pop that Invisibility Potion, and they've successfully skipped that as well. Just Davos stands between Obey Alliance and the win here in the game and the series, despite a really good-looking strategy from Gargoyle. Things have just gone really wrong here in this dungeon. A couple of spots, a couple of deaths, and IQ trying to live here at 1 HP is going to die, and they actually... It's kind of tough here because they've killed an Angel now, and the others are going to full heal. There it is. That is basically the end of that for Gargoyle. For them to win here, not only does Obey Alliance need to wipe at this point, but Gargoyle also have to find a way to handle those 2 Kyrians without their spears, and with both of them having that ability from the worst mob to have died first as well, that far right mob.
Hey.
This is rough.
So interestingly enough, Obey Alliance gets their first set of orbs to spawn before the first intermission, and they do that by hitting the achievement Javelin onto Devos. Look at that. Now they actually just launched the 10% Javelin straight into the boss, utilizing all those extra free orbs that they ended up getting. Did they completely miss the intermission by doing that?
It looks to me like they didn't have to do the intermission. Yeah, that's insane.
They hit him right as Devos was going to do the intermission leap, and they just smacked him immediately. Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, so there's some really cool stuff you can do on this fight with really, really carefully timed usage of those achievement spears that you can get by jumping off the edge. There are these 5 spears that you can grab. You're supposed to grab them for an achievement, but it also does a little bit of damage to the boss's health, and you can use it to manipulate. You can see right now, Hollow going and doing that right now. Is going to grab one of the spears, and he's kind of slow falling up above right now, and we'll lob one of those in. And goes, that's unfortunate, though, the Abyssal Detonation coming out at the same time as well. And so you can see, yeah, that spawned the orbs already for them. So they can now grab those orbs and deposit them back on that central spear and throw them in even right at the start of this intermission push, rather than having to do the entire Blowy Winds phase, which is not only dangerous, but it's a damage loss to do that phase, right? So you're not able to hit the boss at the same time as Gargoyle are going to be wiping to these 2 Angels. I mean, that's just how this goes. They're so rough when you don't have all your cooldowns, you don't have your Lust, you don't have your Kyrian Spear, and you've killed one of them already, so they are empowered mobs. It's a really, really rough position for Gargoyle to be in, but Obey Alliance are putting on a clinic here on Davos as well. This is looking so fantastic for them. They are managing this boss and its intricacies perfectly, and they are going to be getting some massive extra damage as a result. You can see there of ferrying those extra orbs in.
They're just going to launch the Javelin at it. Yeah. So they're just going to launch the Javelin at the boss. It's going to do 10% of the boss's HP. It's hard to tell if this is like a strict damage gain or not, to just like launch the Javelin into the boss over and over again, because it is an 18 fortified. And would you be able to do 10%? Oh, Holo goes down.
Holo goes down. Oh, they might. I mean, they could still wipe from here. Chompy is also very low. They need to avoid these voids. Okay, they have that battle res though, and the battle res is going to come out. So they should be once again fairly safe here. That does end a otherwise deathless run from Obey Alliance in a very unfortunate manner right at the end of the series.
Yeah, deathless series even for Obey Alliance, which honestly for them, this is what they needed. Like they have they have some of the sickest strategies, but their consistency has just always been like what holds them back.
Is that a
and
table with
them
food?
like they're normally like the 3 seed coming into every single weekend.
Yeah.
Then they weren't this weekend. They were the 6 seed, but they were able to take this down with only 1 death across both matches, and were able to beat Obey Alliance 2-0. Or able to beat Gargoyle 2-0.
Obey Alliance taking the victory over Does Gargoyle stream there. There you go. And like you said, almost a deathless run onto that one, and absolutely showing how consistent, how strong, how powerful really this team has been for a very long time, but putting it together. And it also kind of seems like they're hitting their stride a lot more, at least from what we've seen so far here, Zyro, just because of that break, because of that extra time that they've had to start adapting to the meta.
kind of name is that?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of really cool things you could say about Obey Alliance. We could have a really mature look at how they
I'll be
played
back,
so well in
kids.
that dungeon. But listen, what happened in this dungeon is all my fault. It looked like a normal dungeon to you guys, but I was hanging out in the replay ops channel with my boy Martin, and I'm right. We're on the 80. Both teams are on the 80% prideful. Both teams are at 0 deaths, and I'm sitting there, man. My job as an analyst is so difficult. Can one of these teams just wipe or something so I can call them bad? 5 seconds later, Mobone gets stunned by the prideful projectile.
Oh,
Mick goes down. They res Mick. Maystein goes down, and it all snowballs from there. So, yes, I didn't cast this game, but I still cast or cursed them, and that's how this game went. Obey Lions wins. You're welcome, guys.
Did you do that in a previous game as well? Was it the Plague Fall as well? You're just like,
Maybe I did,
they're like
yeah.
doing such a great job. There's instantly wiped right afterwards. Never want to have Zyronic just saying your name, guys. You always want to be able to stay away. But Obey Alliance taking that victory, and Gargoyle Stream going to be moving down into the lower bracket. And whenever we can, we need to take a look at this bracket as well here, Dratos, because we've been kind of going back and forth about, you know, how expected are some of these outcomes, and probably the biggest ones were PIME, Golden Guardians, Gargoyle, and Obey Alliance, right? I feel like in those two situations, we got the running trend, the continued trend with PIME continuing their victories over Golden Guardians, but Gargoyle and Obey Alliance, were you surprised by that or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer in Gargoyle. I still am a believer in Gargoyle. I think they looked really good over the series holistically, right? They lost a game by 3 seconds, and then they lost a game in halls as a result of, like, really as a result of just the Angel pull going wrong, which, I don't know, that can happen in a lot of cases. But other than that, they were looking really strong. Obey Alliance looks really strong as well, but I think Gargoyle are still an incredible set of competitors, and I think they're going to have a good run in the lower bracket as well. Golden Guardians also, I mean, they've had some struggles in different times in some of our previous cups. I think they also are a great candidate to make a nice run in the lower bracket. So even though in our first day we've had some teams win and lose, all teams are still in the tournament. I think the ones even sent down in the lower bracket could easily still mount a comeback from here.
Yeah, and we've seen, you know, time and time again where these lower bracket teams have been able to be producing those sort of comebacks, have been able to make those runs in the lower bracket. I mean, Golden Guardians as well, Titles, is just who we know to be the team that does make those runs in the lower bracket and can do so.
I mean, yeah, exactly. All 8 teams this weekend looked pretty good, at least in terms of, like, they had their own moments of brilliance. And yeah, while the ones that are in the lower brackets definitely looked less consistent as a whole, some of the strategies that were even implemented by P2s and by Sloth looked kind of sick as long as they were consistent. And I think that's what separates the teams the most this season, is just consistency between dungeon to dungeon and even just like pull to pull, because a lot of the strategies are at least similar enough to where if you play your own strategy, you can have like a competitive time, but it's all about being able to just like pull it off. It's like in the Theater of Pain we saw from Sloth. It's all right. They could have even taken that Theater of Pain from Echo if they played it perfect, but it requires them to play it perfect, and that's just something that I think are kind of missing by those bottom 4 teams.
Yeah, and, you know, it's been interesting as well with how much more the meta has evolved for some of these classes and for some of the route strategy. I mean, Zyra, they were touching on it earlier with Devos, just being able to completely avoid that intermission phase in its entirety by forcing the orbs to spawn, by making sure they're able to just push her through before she even gets there. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a huge time save. And the thing is, it's not that difficult to pull off, right? It's something you can easily do in live keys too. So it's just another little time save for the dungeon. That's why we're seeing Spires of Ascension be maybe a minute and a half faster than previous weeks. It's just a really nice time skip. So I don't really think it's that difficult to pull off, right? It's something that all the teams are going to be doing. And it is allowed, of course. We talked about that in the MDI Discord earlier this week. So yeah, just really nice little time save for all the teams.
Yeah, no question. As we saw the bracket, let's start talking about our schedule for tomorrow. We're going to be starting up with some of our upper bracket games and going to be having a couple of eliminations coming up. So some of the big things we're really going to be looking for is going to be how well Perplexed and Echo are going to be continuing their trend as they're squaring off against PIME and Obey Alliance, respectively. We're going to have an elimination round between P2's Angels and Golden Guardians, and between Sloth and this Gargoyle Stream, followed by 2 more rounds of the lower quarters. So 4 eliminations total. historically, Dratnos, we've only had one of those newer teams make it to Sunday, and it's been Does Gargoyle Stream. I think that trend is going to be continuing. Where do you think these brackets are going to be headed?
Yeah, I mean, I like the chances of Gargoyle and PI. I mean, I really got to empathize with Golden Guardians here. They're in that brutal lower bracket situation again where they were before, where they are going to have some a really tough sequence of matches ahead of them, not just in terms of the maps they're on, but in terms of the timings that they're going to play. It's going to be a tough path for them, but they've done this before. They've come out through the lower bracket several times before in previous seasons. They have yet to really mount that in the Shadowlands, but this could be the weekend we see that as well. I think that is absolutely a possibility as well. So those are 3 teams I'm really looking out for.
Yeah, and it's always important not to buy into too much, I think, of what we see on Fridays as well, Tettles, because we've seen such late round runs through a number of different teams.
Oh, that's it. That's it? They're not live no more?
Dinner time for Europe. That's when we're going to be back. Be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, because I'm terrible with time zones, and I might have given the Euro Bros the wrong time. But we'll see. Be sure to join us tomorrow, like I said, for more MDI action. Day number 2, 4 elimination rounds, and we'll be seeing who moves on to Championship Sunday. Thanks so much for joining us for day number 1 of Cup 3. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Damn. Alright, I guess that's it. About to get a while anyways. Heal. Really healing that tank. Holy snap. $1.2 mil already. Damn. It's a pretty cool looking enemy. Damn. the tank. Oof. Dead, dead, dead. This still alive tank is dead. Wow, he healed a lot. Holy shit. Well, I think I'm gonna get on wild for a little bit. Yeah, that's over. Yep. All right, that was quick. We'll be back. I'll probably get on wild.